Thank you for tuning in to the Primed Fatherhood podcast. I'm Tyler Condi, and this is the second part of my two-part interview with my friend Travis Wood. If you haven't listened to the first part of this interview, go listen to that now so you can learn about his massive injuries and the way that he has conquered those trials. Travis is an above-the-knee amputee, and despite his terrible injuries from Afghanistan, he races handcycles and marathons with the not-so-distant goal of making it to the Olympics. Listen in and learn how he motivates himself, why competition makes you better, and how his training is going. We have answered the call. We are committed to a greater purpose. We are fathers. Past achievements do not guarantee future success. We will prime ourselves often to navigate each new challenge. We are capable, brave, and relentless. We will remain undaunted. I have always really admired your competitive spirit and the way that you've competed with your cycling. Can you just kind of tell us about how you're competing and what your goals have been?
Yeah. So I actually got into paracycling, so Paralympic cycling, by chance. I was still in the hospital in Washington, D.C., and they were doing this clinic, and doctors were still telling me, dude, you can never do an elliptical. If you do an elliptical, you're going to be paralyzed. If you run, you'll be paralyzed. So I'm like, well, what am I going to do? How am I going to be healthy? So I got word that there were these people down at the clinic outside, and at the old Walter Reed, there was a sidewalk that went all the way around the hospital in a square. And there were these people that had these, they called them funny bikes, and where you get to ride, you rode them with your hands. And they were offering to let people ride them and get a feel for them. And so I got challenged to go down there by my buddy, my SF buddy, who I was recovering with. He's like, dude, let's go down there. I bet I'm faster than you. I was like, I already know you're faster than me. You're like 110 pounds wet, man. Mm-hmm. I've got a lot of weight on you. Anyway, so we went down there, and I got on one of these bikes. They put me on it. They strapped my leg on, and I started to ride with my hands. And I started off nice and slow because it was a little weird. You're driving a little three-wheeler, and they're tipsy and stuff, and I still wasn't quite strong. But I remember feeling the wind in my face, and I remember how good that felt to go faster than my nice little slow snail's pace of a walk that I've been doing for the past while. And I remember it felt good. And we sat and I talked to these people that were running this clinic for a long time. The name of these people, it was this little organization called the Achilles Freedom Team. And they're based out in New York, and they'd come all the way from New York down to Walter Reed and put you in hand cycles and get you to do it. And their whole goal is to get you to compete, to show you what you're capable of. Well, they said, okay, well, we want you to do a race. And I said, nah, that's good. And my buddy, SF buddy, he was, before he retired, commanding 3rd Special Forces Group. And he's like, nah, we're going to do this. And he signed us up. And we got special spots for the Boston Marathon in 2008. And it was a year into my recovery, so I was still in the hospital. And I'm like, dude, that's 26 miles with my arms. And so we rode for like 2.5 weeks before the marathon. And then I got to go in for a special, thing to do the marathon. And it was one of the most miserable experiences of my life. My arms hurt. My lung was really, really struggling. But there was something that happened. When we're going through, especially in Boston, one of these world marathons, the energy level was just off the charts. Mm-hmm. The screaming, the chanting, especially when you're going by the universities and stuff, it was absolutely amazing. Even if you're like, I can't go any faster, there is some literal power to these people cheering you on, a complete stranger. Come on, man, you're almost there. You can climb that hill. It's great. And I was pretty much instantly hooked at that point. It took me forever. It was 2 hours and 48 minutes or something on wheels, which is really slow. but I realized I needed to do more of this. And so I got myself one. And I started doing more and more and more. In the Army, it's all about pushing yourself. You're always competing against the other guy. You're trying to do best at PT because the better you are, the more promoted you'll get, the chances and stuff. And so I was already a highly competitive person. And when I started paracycling, I started to realize that this is a way I can still run. I may not be able to run with my legs or do an elliptical or go up and down stairs easy, but I can run with my arms. And I was going to give it a shot. And so I did. Started by doing little races, marathons, and then I started getting faster and faster and faster. And then I was just a couple seconds off of the St. George Marathon from setting the course record. And actually, I think 1.5 seconds off. It was the fastest time I ever did. I did it for several years. And then I finally did it in 55 minutes for the St. George Marathon. And it was blistering fast and amazing. But then I got challenged to start doing Paralympic races. So going to world championship events. And so I started learning how to train and ride in groups with other three-wheeled hand cyclists. But these people were amazing because they were born with their disabilities. Almost everybody that I race with. So they're born with their disabilities and they have that cyclist body. So they're really tiny, and they're very little. And so they weigh almost
have two
nothing.
lungs.
Yeah. They have 2 lungs and they're not a 215-pound guy.
Yeah.
And so it was really hard because I just got smoked all the time. But I loved the challenge. I loved that I had to work really hard. And so I started to learn to work harder and harder and harder and train in spots where I was weak. So I was really bad with hills because gravity on big people slows you down. But I was great on flats. I can smoke them on flats all day because I had more power. Downhills also, I could win. So I started training on hills. And the more I did this, the more I trained, the better I got, the more I moved up on the poles. And then I started actually podiuming. And I started to realize that, you know what, I think I want to do this. I want to do this.
So I want to pause you for a second. First race, you weren't even fully recovered out of the hospital?
No.
Right?
I was still inpatient. I got special permission to leave the hospital. I still had a PICC line in my arm. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then how long was it until you started to podium?
So that would be from 2008 when I did that first race. It was not until 2012 when I started competitively doing more races and marathons. And then 2016 is when I actually started podiuming. That was my first year that I actually started podiuming in actual USA cycling races. And it was amazing because I'm racing these guys that are tiny that should be beating me, but I'm beating them because I started working harder. I started training in my weakest points. And then I started to realize that what I was doing on my personal life with my cycling and trying to compete and push myself farther than I thought I could go was actually another tool to help like my students and people that I work with to try to help get them to do things that they're not comfortable with, push themselves out of their comfort zone. Because the honest truth is my body is not a cyclist body. I'm more of a sprinter or power lifter guy. I have a lot of strength and for short bursts. So it's really hard for me to do endurance riding because I'm not built that way. But it was a testament to show that you can do anything you set your mind to if you have a good work ethic and you're willing to do that. So I set a goal of trying to make it to the U.S. Paralympics. I was on point to try and try to get myself on a spot. I did Paralympic tryouts back in 2018. Yeah, it's every 2 years. So 2018, I went to Olympic trials and I did horribly, but it was awesome experience because I was racing against these world-class athletes. And then I went to trials in 2019 and I did really, really good. I did really good, especially for where I was at and who I was racing against. I was racing against people that already made it to the Paralympics. They were already in Rio, and they podiumed in Rio, and I was not that far off from them, and it was a pretty awesome experience. So then I realized that that's what I want to do. I want to one day make it to the U.S. Paralympics, but I had to have goals different because my main goal, my main priority is to be a father and a husband, then to be a teacher, and then to be hopefully a world-class athlete. And my my work ethic had to change. You know, I didn't have time to train 6-8 hours a day like the people that were beating me. I had to train concentrated bursts of an hour and 15 minutes,
Right.
you know, maybe long rides on the weekends. So I had to really focus my efforts and change. And it taught me how to really zone in on key aspects and maximize my time with all of my parts of my life, my home life, my school life, my athletic life. And it was kind of an awesome challenge. And it's been really, really cool experience. I've got to do a lot of things and go a lot of places just by trying to race with my arms. So it's kind of cool.
And once the pandemic calms down, you'll be back in it.
Yeah, so hopefully the pandemic calms down. I had some health issues, so I had to actually take a break anyways after World Championships. My heart started doing something funny, and I have this little metal filter thing that was meant to catch like clots and shrapnel that's in my artery of my heart. And it's not supposed to be there permanently, and so it's actually worked its way out. Now it's in other organs. And the doctors say I can't do a lot of, I guess, high exertive exercises. So I wasn't allowed to get my heart rate above like 120 for a long time. So I had to stop cycling.
Well, yeah, your intervals used to be way higher than
I was almost 200
Yeah.
on my and when I was racing, I was like 198 for the entire 10, 12K race, like maxed out. Like I got to the finish line and I couldn't see right. You know, that was how hard I was pushing that line just to be where I was at. And so I had to take it easy, and then I took it really easy, and then, you know, Rona happened, and I got out of my entire routine, and my dad bod came back. And so it's been really great to have that, you know, welcoming gift to keep me warm. But I've been working on trying to get myself back into things. I'm, you know, starting to slowly train back, get myself back into routine consistently, so that I can actually be on point when, you know, this whole thing settles down, and hopefully actual cycling races come back, that I can actually hopefully be ready. So
That's awesome. I've always been cheering you on and love hearing how each race goes and everything. It's been really fun for me. In my experience racing mountain bikes and racing dirt bikes, I've realized that you can be a competitive person and enjoy the competition, but not be a good racer if you don't enjoy the routine and the practice and the suffering and gritting through all of the rest of it. So how do you deal with the pain that you have in your training, and what else do you think you get out of the routine?
Well, so I look at my main goal. My main goal is to live a full life with my wife and kids. And the more healthier I am, the more of a chance I have to let that happen. Because the honest truth is 84 Surgeries does a lot to the human body. I know my quality of life is going to diminish every year that goes on. I'm already seeing it in the way I walk right now. And I know I'll eventually be wheelchair bound and then worse. I get that. But I do know that the healthier I am, the harder I push my body and to strive to be more physically fit, mentally fit, the better chances I have of prolonging that, if that makes sense. And so when I'm training, when I get to that pain, especially with paracycling, because you're racing with your arms are not as big a muscle with your legs, and so lactic acid builds up really fast. So really what you're doing is training to the pain. And so when I get to that wall where my arms are like, dude, you need to stop. This hurts, and it's not fun anymore. I go back to my goals. I literally go through this, not quite a mantra, but just this whole list of things. Dude, it's better for your health, your lung. You think about how you feel after this ride. How do you feel after this ride? There's always that after a nice competition, after a race, after you've gone and given it a good hard effort, there's always that euphoric feeling, you know, that dopamine release that comes afterwards. And I have to remind myself of that, because when you're in pain, you don't think about any of that. You think about the suffering. You're like, dude, this hurts.
Yep.
My back hurts. My body hurts. I need to stop. I can't even hold on to my handlebar anymore. And so I think about that. I think about, okay, it's better for me long-term, better for me long-term. And I literally will repeat that as much as I need to until I get past that wall. But what I've learned is in competition and racing and training, once you get past one wall, there's another wall not very far out from that. And in the Army and in the military, they have a 20% rule. When you get to a point where your body and your mind are telling you need to stop, it's time to be done, you actually have about 20% more that you can actually give before you are done.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I try to find that. Where's my 20%? And I try to push that line. And I've pushed myself to the point where I've gone over the line. I've passed out on my bike and fallen off of it on the side of the road. I've passed out and puked. I've done all kinds of different things where I know where that I've found that line. And so what I do is I push to the line and I get as close as I can to that. And it's very uncomfortable. But what I learn is discomfort means growth. And I've learned to try to get used to discomfort in all aspects of my life, with physical training, with my life, with working with people, with being a teacher. It's not easy for me to be a teacher. I'll be honest with you. I lack tact. And so I have a hard time just not speaking my mind and being myself. And I'm not an academic. It was really hard for me to go back to school and get my degrees to teach. But I did it for a bigger reason. I did it to try to be an example, to show people that just because you're not good at something doesn't mean you can't accomplish it. And so I've learned to kind of revel in discomfort, embrace the suck, as we do in the military, embrace the suck, because there's always some kind of a good treat at the end, some kind of good treat, a shiny medal. For some reason, that is a good carrot for some people. Marathon runners, they love the medals that they get, and so they hate it. They're like, oh, this training sucks. It's awful. My legs hurt. They get that medal. They're so excited. They're ready for their next marathon. Same thing when you compete and you get trophies and medals for any kind of race or event. It gives you some juice and motivation to want to go next. And so I've learned to live in those discomfort levels. I love them. They suck. I mean, there's no way of getting around it. They're not pleasant in any way, but they often have a good learning aspect out of it. I try to learn to I try to be genuine with all my teaching. I tell my students, discomfort is growth. When you're stretching yourself and you're not comfortable, that means you're actually growing new things, whether it's muscles, whether it's dendrites in your brain, or whatever the case may be. You're actually improving, and that's why we're here on this planet. And so I constantly strive to obtain that, so I'm always trying to be uncomfortable in one way or another.
Yeah, I love that. It sounds stupid, but I'm still riding the Harley to work in the mornings, and it's super cold coming down the highway, and I just look at it like, I can be cold for 15 minutes. Like, I'll embrace this suffering and come to work knowing that I already did something harder than most everyone else did.
Yeah, it's like a tiny win, a little tiny victory.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why when I exercise and I train, I do it really early in the morning, because I don't have the ability to make my bed like I used to in the Army, because my wife's asleep and I'm not allowed to contact her until 9 a.m.
Yeah.
I'm a morning person and she's not. And so I try to train in the morning because that's a victory. Every time I get up and I get out of bed, no matter how hard my body's like, dude, no, you're old, you're broken. My mind tells me that every morning. You're old, you're broken. And sometimes I believe it. But every time I get out, I know I have just won. I know that if I train even just for a little bit, I've done something that very small amounts of people in this world do, and that is get up early before work and they train, do something productive, give yourself a win, and really you're ready to attack the day after that. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it's kind of funny because I'll try and talk people into coming and racing with me, and they end up just saying, oh, I don't care about medals, I just ride for fun or whatever. And for me, I don't really even seem to enjoy the races. Like, race day is stressful. You're always trying to get your food in at the right time and get your gear together and be at the starting line at the right time and just all of those things. And then too, the training isn't that enjoyable either. So then I have people ask, like, why do you even do things like this? And for me, it's that, I guess it's kind of a little chip I get on my shoulder, knowing that I'm pushing myself and doing hard things and trying to improve. And then the races is just where you measure, I guess. Is that what you're?
It's kind of like not necessarily a standardized test, but it's a measurement for growth.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer that we are on this planet to grow. And to constantly try to progress in all aspects of our life. I have a lot of buddies that I recover with in the hospital that are happy just staying home collecting their retirement, and nobody's going to blame them for that. but I know they can do much more. They have so much that they can still give because they're even younger than I am. And I'm not saying that, it's hard to work. It's hard for me because I get stared at every single day, and some people talk to me, and most people when they get used to me, they talk to me, but getting stared at and people not knowing how to talk to you is a challenge for me. But yeah, I believe that we're on this planet to progress and to constantly strive to, like I said earlier, be better today than we were yesterday. And I think competitions is one way, at least for me, to help me to measure that. Okay. Well, I've done this race 7 different times over the past 7 years, and I've slowly gotten better by a couple seconds every year. So I think I'm growing. That's great. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Same thing with teaching. I measure engagement of my students, and not just that, but lasting relationships. I believe that if I build lasting relationships with these kids and they come to me, I see that I'm doing a good job when they come to me about personal issues and ask my advice. That's not on the subject that I'm teaching, but on a personal level, I see that as something that I've done right. That's a measurement of growth. Mm-hmm. My kids, when they come and sit next to me and snuggle up, even if I smell oily because I was working on my Jeep, I see that as a win, and so I'm constantly trying to compete in whatever aspect, being a husband, a father, whatever, to get to those little things, to have that demonstration, because ultimately, the reality is we all want validation for what we're doing, right? We all want to know we're doing the right thing and we're doing good. So competition's an easy way, because at the end, you just finish something and you get a medal, you don't get a medal, you see where you're at. And that's kind of that validation that we're all seeking in life.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you see that competitiveness in your kids? Did they inherit that, or?
Yes, yeah. They have.
For better or for worse?
Yeah, for worse right now, because they haven't learned how to accept when they don't do well. Mm-hmm. Like my oldest, she's a sophomore in high school now. The one that recovered with me in the hospital, and she hates not knowing things. So if she doesn't learn something in school the right way and she feels like she didn't get the concept, she will kill herself until all hours of the night learning, watching videos, doing things to learn, to make sure she understands it. She can't accept the fact that she didn't do well. So she will do everything she can to get to that next point. And right now it's almost an unhealthy-ish thing, but I can see it molding into something really great. And she does it with ballet. She's been doing ballet since she was 4, and she's phenomenal at it. Phenomenal. She works hard every year and competes really hard every year. But when she doesn't get a part that she's trying for, she's just as broken. And so, there's definitely a lot of that competitiveness in my kids, and against each other too. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, for sure. I want to go through some random questions to finish things off. So I really appreciate having you on. You've been a big inspiration for me for a long time. I've known you for 8 years now, or 7 or 8 years, something like that. And it's, you've always been a really big inspiration. And when I don't feel like getting up in the morning and doing my training or working early or whatever it is, I just think of you out there on the highway, because I know you're probably passing my house already or something. And so,
sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. So that's awesome. But I just want to start by asking how long you've been married and how many kids you have.
So I'll be married 18 years on March 1st. So a little over 17 years. And I have 3 kids. I have my oldest daughter, Maddie, who's a sophomore in high school. I have a 4th grader, Charlotte, and then I have a 3rd grader, Ryan, that are 18 months apart. So a nice long 6.5-year gap between kids, because we weren't supposed to be able to have kids again. But yeah. And so 3 kids and a whole mess of dogs.
That's awesome. So what motivates you to do the things that you hate?
I think ultimately I realized after I got injured, I more worry about my family than anything else. But everybody watches you. People watch everybody, right? We're always watching. We're always observing people around us, whether we're at the store or wherever it is in life. So I realized that when I started mentoring kids back in Washington, D.C., that had lives like I did, where they grew up kind of products of the foster system and, in abusive relationships with parents before they went to jail. I worked with these kids and I realized that my experiences were there to help them, and they were always looking to see what I was doing. And the same thing with my wife and kids. They're always watching me, and we're always watching to see what's going on, what's happening next. And so I think that factor of always striving to be at my best, because I know at least somebody's watching somewhere. That helps me a lot, because, you don't know the influence you have on somebody, good or bad. And one thing that I learned really early on, especially in my recovery, when my daughter taught me, is I wanted to be a good influence, wherever that was, whatever that was, whether it be just a smile as somebody's walking by, or a handshake, or something on a deeper level. I wanted to be a good influence for somebody. And so that kind of helps me to drive forward when I don't want to drive forward, when I don't want to get out of bed, when my pain is too much, when I'm too tired at the end of the day to play a board game with my kids. Those little moments are cherished when they're asking for those things, when people are looking to you for various, things in their personal life, or just for advice, whatever the case may be. They're doing it for a reason, because they rely on you, and they want to see what you're going to do next. And so I use that as a motivator to help me, because I think it's a good strength, I guess.
Awesome. That's an awesome motivation. What's your favorite meal?
Oh, geez. Corned beef and cabbage is my favorite meal on the planet. Every year for my birthday, and then for my Alive Day, that's the day I got blown up, we do corned beef and cabbage. I don't know why I love it, but I absolutely love it.
Lean in protein.
Mm-hmm. A very close second is carne asada, because a lot of my family's Hispanic, or we have a lot of Hispanic roots too, and so I grew up on that, and I'm a big carne asada fan. But yeah, corned beef and cabbage is my favorite. A little bit of mustard and some red potatoes. That'll make my day.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's a good one. What's a pet peeve of yours?
Pet peeve. I have a few of them. As a teacher, so I teach high school. Nowadays, there's a lot of things that are overused. Overuse the word anxiety, overuse the word bullying, and overuse the word PTSD. And I see that with these kids that haven't really gone through any adversity. I'm not discounting their feelings, but they don't understand the meaning of that word. It's becoming desensitized of a word. So that's a big pet peeve of mine. Also, I have a hard time with people just not willing to try. That seems too hard. I talk to people all the time. Why are you doing that? That takes too much energy. That bothers me. Or when I'm doing something, I do a lot of active project-based learning with my students, and it's a lot of work. I do a lot of planning to make it engagement, because I want lasting knowledge for my students. That's going to give them a life skill, not teaching to a test, taking a quiz, and forgetting it. I don't believe in that education. And so I have teachers that are like, well, it's easy for you. It's easy for you. You do this. It's easy for you. It's actually not. When I sit down at lunch, I almost pass out because I'm exhausted. It takes a lot of energy to do what I do, to smile, to be who I am. And so when I see people that are just like discounting the efforts that people are making, or giving up even before they've even given it a shot, that's really hard for me to see, because I've learned that there's so much more to the human potential than we realize. And we can accomplish so many things if we're willing to just fight a little bit, just dig in and just handle a little bit of grit, because there's nothing that's going to be comfortable about it. But everybody can go farther than they are now. Everybody can achieve things greater than they're at now. And they just need to believe in themselves. And that lack of self-belief, that lack of, okay, I'm going to give this a shot, is really hard for me to handle, especially when I've gone through so much different trauma in my life. And I'm like, really, you're just not going to apply for a job because it's too hard? That kind of stuff really hurts me inside. So, yeah.
Well, you're doing a good job inspiring people to get out and do stuff. So,
well, I don't know. We'll see. I try.
Yeah. Okay, next one. What's your favorite place to visit?
Oh, favorite place to visit. So a perk of getting blown up is every couple years or whenever I need my prosthetics go bad, I get new ones from the military, and it's awesome because they're really expensive. But I learned that there are a lot of people who have basic insurance or even no insurance that are amputees from diabetes or whatever reason that can't afford legs. So I started actually rebuilding my prosthetics with my prosthetist, the guy that builds my legs, and donating them. And one day we got invited to go to American Samoa. Amazing, beautiful people. Their culture is extremely relaxed, and there's a huge diabetes issue there. And when they lose their leg, they just stay home and don't do anything until they die. And so I was asked to come from the country to actually put on a clinic and show them how to adapt their lifestyle to make a new normal, to show themselves that they can still work, they can still progress, they can still do things. And so I actually ran a clinic. I taught people how to walk on the legs. I gave them prosthetics, these $80, $90, $100,000 prosthetics. I gave them to them for free, taught them how to walk on them, and then I did an ocean triathlon where I actually swam and biked and did a walk for them. And we did this clinic, and I've gone back several times. And now there's this thing that they do every year that the locals put on, even with me not being there, where they do this little active, adaptive clinic and lifestyle for these people. And that I honestly would say that's probably my favorite place to visit because the people are beautiful. They're simple. It takes you away from the mainstream world for a little while and to realize what things really matter. Everybody's focused on family there and supporting each other. And so an opportunity for me to give back from the many blessings that I've had, that's probably one of the most rewarding trips that I've ever been on. And I look forward to going again when it's all cleared. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really good. Of the fathers you know, who's one you look up to and why?
Oh, well, of the fathers that I know, so I have a father that I actually look up to because more so now because I see his students and I see his kids, and I see how they act and interact and how they do hard things. He's actually my bishop, and he is a very simple man. He's the king of rednecks, in my opinion. If there's something wonky together, he knows how to do it. But I observe this man, and he's a very simple man, lives a very simple life, and he's got 7 wonderful children. And something that he does with his children is they do everything together. They work together outside in the yard. They do hard things. His girls, before they even have driver's license, know how to hook up to a trailer and back out a trailer out of a driveway in reverse. That's something that most men don't know how to do today. So these girls know how to solve problems. Not just that, when they're approached with a new problem, these kids know how to find a way to use the tools that they've been given to accomplish that problem, which is really inspiring to me. It's something that I strive to do with my own kids because I'm always asking that question. Am I teaching them enough things? And I look at him and I look at what he does, and it genuinely inspires me. It inspires me to try to be like that, to try to instill this wholesome family life and an expectation that everybody is a contributing factor to this family. It's not just mom and dad doing everything. We all have a role, and our roles are important. And I think he, in my opinion, is one of the epitomes of that. So
That's awesome. What was the last movie you watched in theaters?
Ooh, that's hard because we're so busy, we hardly ever get to the theaters. I want to say the last one we actually watched in theaters, it was what was one of those, was it the Hobbs and Shaw movie? Probably.
Oh, nice.
When it was back in theaters.
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for those cheesy movies. They're dumb, horrible acting, and just ridiculous on all accounts. But I think it's funny, so my wife and I like to go and watch them and laugh. But I want to say that's probably the last one we went and watched.
Sweet.
So, yeah, we often on our date nights just go to dinners and we'll watch Netflix at home or something. So
That's a good one. All right, so what are you most concerned about as a father right now?
Well, you know, with one daughter that's almost dating age, I'm most concerned about instilling proper values that she chooses to adopt for herself. I learned early on that my kids are going to make their own choices. And it doesn't matter, a lot of it matters on how you live your life, because they watch you, they're smart, and they know if you're real and if you're making your decisions because you know it's right, or if you're doing it because people are watching. And so my hope is that, my fear is that I've not instilled enough in my kids, not taught them enough, not equipped them enough for the life that's going to come ahead of them. I see it every day in my classroom, and so it makes me more and more afraid. And so I'm constantly trying to make sure my kids are aware of what's out there, making sure my kids are gaining tools, actual tools, to give them, 1, a good work ethic, 2, to learn how to actually communicate with people, not just through a text message, actual face-to-face talking, 3, learn how to solve problems, because one of the biggest things that I see and it is when any kind of adversity comes, a lot of these kids that I teach, they just fall apart. And it's not necessarily, you can't even blame it on the parents or technology. The fact of the matter is, we live in an amazing time. People that we grew up with, and we grew up working hard for everything we've accomplished. So literally almost everything's obtained. You can get anything at your fingertips. Think about what you can order from Amazon now. There's so many things that's easy. So you don't have to really work hard for anything. So there's not that struggle, that grit that's given to us when we were youth. They don't get that anymore. And so I'm trying to give my kids that, because I'm afraid that when they become adults and they have real challenges like marital problems, because everybody has to learn how to communicate. After that first couple of years, it's not honeymoon phase anymore, and you're learning to adapt. And every year you adapt different and you change, and you need to, because that's progression. But if you're not equipped to handle that, I mean, we live in a world of throwaways, and I don't want my kids to think that. I want my kids to know that you can make it work, and you should make it work, because you have a commitment. You have a commitment to your job. You have a commitment to this, and you should always strive to make it work, regardless of the circumstances. And so, yeah, that's probably one of my biggest fears, is that I'm not doing enough.
That's awesome. It's awesome that you answered my second question. What are you doing about it? About your fears. So that's really good. All right, and to finish off, what hobby are you enjoying most right now?
Well, one of the gifts I got from my grandfather, who helped raise me, was he was a machinist, and he taught me how to build engines and cars. And I love building cars. I love tinkering. And so I'm actually in the process of building a 49 Army ambulance, a Willys Army ambulance. It's a panel wagon. And it was actually my grandfather's. I bought it from him. And before that, it was owned by the U.S. Army in 49. So technically, I'm the third owner, and completely rebuilding it from the ground up. I'm making it a daily driver. So the idea of driving something, 1, that nobody has, but 2, that I built with my bare hands, is something that's really enticing to me. So I love to build. I love to create, but I only like to do it with metal. So
you keeping it stock, or are you?
Oh, no, it is not stock. So I have built, let's see, with the current internal components, I modern LS swapped it. So I took new GM drivetrain, but I took the guts out of it and I rebuilt the motor. So it's got nicer cam. I've got better headwork. I've got better valve springs. So to the flywheel, it'll be probably close to 500, maybe a little over that in horsepower. It'll be a good run really good. And then I got a heavy duty truck and transmission, just the line below an Allison. And then I did F-250 Super Duty diesel axles underneath it so that it won't ever break.
Yeah.
But yeah, plan on making it a daily driver. It'll have air conditioning in it, everything. So
stance will be similar to normal height?
Oh, she'll be bigger. She's actually about 7 inches bigger than she was.
7 inches bigger.
Yeah, because it was old, original 49 leaf springs, and they were spring under, and now I did spring over with modern axles, and so she's a lot taller.
Fit big rubber and big wheels in there.
Yeah, for now it'll only have 33-inch tires because I had them. But I'll probably have 35s or 37s underneath it. But yeah, she's going to look great. Painted original Army colors, and yeah, she'll look good. And it'll be really cool because you don't see those anymore. They're few and far between, and I like keeping that heritage going. So
yeah, well, that's half the fun of a a classic or a vintage car is the story.
Oh, yeah.
And all of that. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool. And there's a lot to that. Like when I did something stupid as a kid, I actually had to do things to that Jeep when I was a little boy. And so it's kind of fun that I get to have it now, you know. So.
That you were working on it for punishment before, and now you're punishing yourself.
Yeah. To work on it for fun so
Yeah.
that I can enjoy it and drive it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun. So
Cool.
yeah.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to share all this with us, and I want to have you on again too later. So.
Oh, happy to. Hopefully it'll be good for anybody out there. So
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
yeah, man.
Thank you again, Travis, for taking the time to share with us. Watch for Travis in the Tokyo Paralympics, August 2021. I'll let everyone know when his book comes out, and thank you to everyone who's listened to this podcast episode. If you got anything out of this podcast, please subscribe and leave a review wherever you are listening. Also, please share this episode with someone you think that will be benefited by it. If you want to comment or ask questions, please do so on this episode on YouTube. Thank you for listening, and stay primed.